Real quick, fellas, just before the video starts, I would love for you to go down into the description and check out these awesome Perca-Cola posters, courteous of RadAustin27. You might know the name. He's a good friend of mine. He and I are doing this little collab. This history episode is all about Perca-Colas. Go copy your posters in the description. Use the code. You guys are the best.
Your hands are cold. Your movements lifeless. You want more speed.
Oh, God.
You know, I have 38.5 days played on this map, and I just feel like there's something missing. I just don't see it anymore. Used to be fun. I mean, there's like 3 doors to open. I mean, the magic box is cool. The ray gun's cool. But what else is there? Just like that, DLC 1 of World of War Zombies Verrucked. Zombies was brand spanking new, and although Treyarch knew they had something with this mode, they also knew that they needed to add something. There was a lot to be desired, and you bet your sweet tender ass they did. Ladies and gentlemen, Perca-Colas. Does anybody have any questions so far? Yeah, you in the front?
What's a Perca-Cola?
Perca-Colas are nothing more than a chemically engineered beverage to make your zombie killing experience all the better.
Oh, so kind of like drugs.
No, not kind of like... It's exactly like drugs.
Oh, my dad told me drugs are bad.
This is a history lesson. This isn't supposed to be interactive between you and I. You're supposed to be listening, and I'm just supposed to be going through this.
Where can we get these drugs?
Oh, well, the drugs are everywhere. They're scattered around the map. They're usually in their own respective perk machine. They're nice and bright and colorful. You can't miss it. It gives the player some sort of progression system, some sort of objective other than mindlessly shooting the same enemy type in the same environment. Perca-Colas really added an interesting dynamic to zombies. Let's meet our 4 original perks, the 4 OGs that were paired with Verrucked. Quick Revive. For 1,500 points, revive your teammates twice as fast. Double Tap Root Beer for 2,000 points. Double your fire rate, baby.
It's actually technically by 33%.
Speed Cola for 3,000 points. Literal, actual liquid cocaine. Everything just seems to be faster and more intense. And lastly, but certainly not least importantly, Juggernog for 2,500 points. Increase your health from a little to a lot. 100 to 250 to be exact. These perks quickly became iconic. They appeared on nearly every map ever for all 4 of them. The list seems endless. Quick Revive can be found seemingly anywhere, starting with BO3 Noct, Verrucked, Shino, Darius, Kino, 5, Ascension, Call the Dead, Shang, Moon, Transit Farm, Town, Nuketown, Die Rise, Buried, Origins, Shadows, The Giant, DE, Zetsubo, Gorod, and Rev. Revelations is the cutoff point for this perk system. More on that later. Jug and Speed Cola are on all of the maps Quick Revive are, plus Mob of the Dead, and Double Tap Root Beer on fewer maps, but a couple of them, starting off, of course, with World of War Verrucked. It can be found in BO1 Verrucked, World of War and BO1 Shinonuma, World of War and BO1 Darius, Kino, 5, Call the Dead, Shang, and Moon. It didn't take long for the 4 original perks to grow a life beyond zombies, beyond Call of Duty. It became a gaming icon. Clothing, mini fridges, shot glasses, the merch was rampant. People were excited. DIYs, people were making homemade custom perk bottles. I can tell you from personal experience, I have. Some people make actual perk beverages in real life. I think it's safe to say the Perca-Colas were a success.
Why does Treyarch hate PhD?
Fast forward a couple of years, we're in Black Ops 1, baby. Ascension, to be exact. 2 new Perca-Colas were added to the game, one of which being the good old classic PhD Flopper. The perk was notorious. For only 2,000 points, you were able to negate all splash damage, all explosive damage, all fall damage, and you could flop around like a cute little dolphin. With Black Ops 1 having so many powerful, explosive weapons like the Mustang and Sally and the ray gun, PhD Flopper shine. Finally, I can shoot my wonder weapon recklessly and not have to worry about the consequences. What a relief. You really got your bang for your buck with this perk. After its Ascension debut, it was featured on Call of the Dead, Shangri-La, Moon, and the perk was so popular and delightful that Treyarch naturally discontinued it immediately. And after taking it from us, they teased it on various maps.
Oh, my dude, you just got pranked. Bet you didn't see that one coming up.
But don't worry, it conveniently made a return on Origins, the one map in Black Ops 2 that does not have a Mustang and Sally.
But Tim, PhD is on Mob of the Dead Grief.
Silence! It's not the same! PhD Flopper's life was short-lived, but we lived for a good time, not a long time. PhD Flopper, in its heyday, was one of the greatest perks. It's unfortunate that Treyarch doesn't like us having fun with their own games.
I'm fast as fuck, boy!
And who could forget about Stamin Up? The perk gives you a 7% speed increase and enables you to sprint for longer durations of time. If there's one thing that grinds my gears, it's running at a slow pace in a first-person shooter game. Can't have that. Stamin Up, for that reason, is my favorite perk, perhaps the coolest looking perk icon. It's only 2,000 points, a relatively cheap cost, with the convenience of being on Adderall for the rest of the game. Stamin Up is an all-time classic and, as you could probably imagine, appears on a lot of fucking maps. BO3 Noct, Verrucht, and Shino, Ascension, Call of the Dead, Shangri-La, Moon, Transit, Town, Buried, Origins, Shadows, half the time out of the Snowbank and the Giant, DE, Zetsubo, Gorod, and Rev. A very popular perk. For good reason, we all like running faster. It had been a while since we got a brand new perk after the 4 core and Verrucht, but we finally did with Ascension, and we cashed out. We fucking balled out. We got 2 iconic hot classics. Wait a second. Quick Revive is drastically different all of a sudden? Yeah, it turns out in World of War, Quick Revive was a big old lame stinker of a perk. You paid 1,500 points to revive your teammates faster, which isn't really worth a perk slot. And although they kept that ability for co-op on solo now, for only 500 points, a third of the initial cost, you now get a second chance at life. 3 times. How does that make any sense? Why am I paying more for an ability that is significantly worse? Treyarch overcompensated here. So much so that Quick Revive went from being probably the worst perk in the game to one of the best. BO1 was on a roll. Just after getting the dynamic duo of Stamin Up and PhD on Ascension, we got Call of the Dead's Deadshot Daiquiri. Just, makes you wanna store some Gorilla Glue or something, fight a fucking grizzly bear. Let's go! Okay, I'm back and I'm calmer. Deadshot Daiquiri is a flat 1,500 points. Not too expensive, but you pay what you get for. You don't really get much with this perk. Increased hipfire accuracy, and you'll auto-aim at the zombies' heads, which you should be trying to do on your own anyways, so it's not really worth a perk slot, but not a bad perk. Good enough, evidently, to have been on several maps. A lot of them, actually, a surprising amount. BO3 Noct, Verrucht, Shino, Kino, Ascension, Call of the Dead, Shangri-La, Moon, Call of the Dead, Origins, the other half of the Snowbank on the Giant, or Eisendrach, Zetsubo, Gorod, and Revelations. And to conclude Black Ops 1 and its grandeur in outer space, ladies and gentlemen, Mule Kick. For a small price of 4,000 points, that's sarcasm, of course. 4,000 points gets you an extra gun slot, so instead of just having a primary and a secondary, you now have a third weapon, which on paper sounds good, and in the long run it is a good investment. But the problem is, when you do down with this perk, it is very hard to come back from it. It's at least hard to come back without a crushed spirit. You spend 4,000 points on the perk, several thousand points on another gun, potentially, if you're spinning the mystery box. And if you plan on supersizing your meal today, aka pack-a-punching, that's going to be another 5 grand, so it's mighty expensive. Make sure you're making the right investment. For whatever reason, Treyarch generously decided to place Mule Kick on all of the previous Black Ops maps as well. So even though it was actually revealed on Moon, it's in all of the Black Ops maps. It's a little bit confusing. Mule Kick is on a lot of maps. BO1 and BO3 Noct, BO1 and BO3 Verrucht, BO1 and BO3 Shinonuma, BO1 Darius, Kino, 5, Ascension, Call of the Dead, Shangri-La, Moon, Die Rise, Buried, Origins, Shadows of Evil, The Giant, DE, Zetsubo, Gorod, and Rev. Here's something to note while we're still in the first half of this video. You've probably noticed that on nearly every map so far, a brand new Perk-a-Cola was introduced. Enjoy that right now while you can, because although Black Ops 2 has many new perks, it gets a little bit dry after that, boys.
Cowboys can't shoot slow, or they'll end up bleeding.
This is really boring. You really need to up the energy level. I'm getting sick of this.
Boys can move slow, they'll end up dead all over.
Double tap 1.0. It's like a pretty basic thing. Like it's just not that. Like not
It was
that.
a lucky guess.
No, I'm serious. Like it's just like it basic. Like nothing fancy. Not that great. I don't know. That's kind of double tap one.
Welcome to Black Ops 2, where there's a lot of good and an equal amount of terrible. Look no further than the first map, Transit. Right off the bat, okay, double tap 1 got discontinued. How rude is that? Treyarch dumped Double Tap Root Beer. It's now Double Tap 1. It is the inferior version of what is now Double Tap 2. In all seriousness, Double Tap 2 is a major upgrade over Double Tap 1. It maintains Double Tap 1's rate of fire increase, but it also shoots 2 bullets for every one, essentially doubling the damage for the same price, and added ability for the same exact value. Double Tap went quickly from being one of the worst to one of the best. Needless to say, Double Tap 1 and Double Tap 2 don't coexist on the same maps, so Double Tap 2 would completely and utterly replace Double Tap 1 from Black Ops 2 and onwards. Those maps would be Transit, Farm, Town, Nuketown, Die Rise, Mob of the Dead, Buried, Origins, Shadows, The Giant, DE, Zetsubo, Gorod, and Rev. And obviously, since Double Tap 2 is superior, it was then put on all of the Chronicles remasters instead of putting Double Tap 1 back in those maps. I mean, that wouldn't really be a remaster. That would be more or less a downgrade if they did that. Don't get me wrong, Double Tap Root Beer was a very successful brand, but Zombies wasn't quite at its peak during the transition, so Double Tap 2 stuck, and for a lot of players, a lot, actually, from Black Ops 2 onwards, since Zombies was still rising in popularity, Double Tap 2 was quickly accepted. But wait, Transit brought us another perk. It wasn't just Double Tap 2. It was also, you know the name, come on now, baby. Unlike Double Tap 2, Tombstone is a piece of garbage perk. You buy it, it takes up a perk slot, it costs 2,000 points, and then you down, because you're not a particularly good player. And that's evident because rather than surviving and finishing out the round with your buddies, you take the easy way out, and you sit on the sidelines and watch. If your teammates manage to survive, you can then grab your Tombstone and get your loadout that you died with. Not only is Tombstone a selfish perk, it is a redundant one. Why would you invest in a perk slot that keeps your other perks intact when you can get a perk to prevent you from dying in the first place? Any perk that incentivizes death is a bad perk. It only appears on Transit and Town. Thank God it did not spread its infection throughout the rest of Call of Duty Zombies. This perk is garbage, but the jingle's kind of good. Along came DLC 1's Die Rise, and with it, a brand new Perk-a-Cola. Who's who? Just when you thought it couldn't get worse than the Transit and Tombstone duo, along came the Die Rise and Who's Who duo, which proved to be even worse. Somehow. In essence, Who's Who and Tombstone are actually very similar perks. They prevent you from losing what you have in death. They both share the same major flaw, which is that, again, they're both redundant. You know what's a better investment for your perk slot than Who's Who? Anything else that would prevent you from dying in the first place. In Die Rise's defense, okay, you can actually get all of the perks. So if you can have Who's Who along with all of the other abilities, why not? That's beneficial. But that doesn't change the cold hard facts. Who's Who is not a good perk. Sorry, average 13-year-old Reddit boy. In fact, it's worse than Tombstone. Instead of just grabbing what you had with Tombstone and Who's Who, you have to revive yourself with a fucking starting pistol. It could be around 50, and you'll still have the starting pistol, and you're still expected to revive yourself. Not a fucking shot. I mean, unless you are the relaxing end, you are going to die by Who's Who's side 9 out of 10 times. And you know, the most painful part about all of it is that Die Rise is the least ideal map to have Who's Who on. If it were on any other spacious map that isn't vertically inclined, Who's Who would actually be a lot easier to use. It's Die Rise in particular that makes this perk a lot worse than it actually is on paper. Some perks, while not being all that helpful, or at least not harmful to the player. Who's Who and Tombstone, to some extent, are detrimental to the player's well-being. These perks are genuinely bad. Who's Who is probably the worst Perk-a-Cola in Call of Duty Zombies history. BO2 certainly didn't start strong, but it did end sort of strong. You know, they had some pretty cool perks towards the end. One of them being Electric Cherry. Electric Cherry debuted on one of the greatest maps of all time, and so naturally, it succeeded. With this perk, you emit electricity when reloading your gun, which isn't a game changer, but is very helpful and certainly worth the low cost of 2,000 points. To be able to buy yourself a few extra seconds to clear some space to stun all of the nearby zombies when you're in a pinch, it is actually a very underrated thing, especially on a very tight and condensed map like Mob of the Dead. The reason why I personally don't hold Electric Cherry to such a high regard is because for the vast majority of the time while you're reloading your weapons, you're not going to be surrounded by zombies. In all likelihood, you're reloading with nothing in your proximity. I don't think Electric Cherry's actual usage rate is very high. Electric Cherry is a very good assistant perk, a secondary, a third, fourth choice. Definitely not a number one choice. After its Mob of the Dead debut, it was featured on Origins, Der Eisendrache, Zetsubo, Gorod, and Revelations. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, to conclude Black Ops 2's perk roster, we have Vulture Aid Elixir from Buried. If there ever was a unique perk, this is the one. It has a multitude of abilities, 3 to be exact. This perk is as close as it's going to get to a psychedelic. The first and most notable ability is to see shit through walls. It also emits green gas that you can sit in and camouflage from the zombies, and also you can pick up extra points and bullets off the ground from deceased zombies. How cool is that? While it doesn't blow you away, Vulture Aid helps you in a bunch of miscellaneous ways that do add up significantly over time. The cost is 3,000, 1,000 per ability. You can look at it that way, and you're essentially getting a 3-for-1. What's that? You're sick of buying your perks from their respective machines? You want something more mainstream, something more convenient? Well, Wonder Fizz, bitch. The Wonder Fizz machine, brought to you by Origins. The Wonder Fizz machine is to perks what the mystery box is to guns. For a fixed cost of 1,500 points, you get a crack at a randomly generated perk, whether it be Quick Revive, which is actually worth 1,500, or Mule Kick, which is actually worth 4,000. There is risk, there is reward. You might get what you want, you might not. You may be wondering though, Tim, why actually spin the Wonder Fizz machine when you can go up to the regular perk machine and buy it that way? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And you're right, but Treyarch was actually able to pull this off because they inserted Wonder Fizz exclusive perks, perks that you can only get in the Wonder Fizz machine. In Origin's case, you can only obtain PhD Flopper, Deadshot Daiquiri, and Electric Cherry in the Wonder Fizz machine. Using it is not ideal in every scenario. There are actually very few scenarios in which using it is a good idea, but it does add a very fun and random dynamic to the perk system that hadn't previously been there. It creates fun challenges, unpredictability. You know, now thinking about it, Treyarch must really like to bring out the gambling addictions in all of us with the mystery box first and now the Wonder Fizz. This was actually great timing. Though many perks were introduced in BO2, the whole system was starting to get a little dry, a little bland, a little predictable. This completely and instantly revitalized the whole system and found itself under Eisendrache, Gorod, and Revelations in the future. Do you remember earlier in the video when I told you to appreciate all of these brand new perks coming out? Well, we've hit that point. The final perk. Of course, at the time, we did not know that. The only perk that we got in that game came with the very first map, Shadows of Evil. Upon first glance, Widow's Wine seems like a very steep price, 4,000 points. It's enough to turn most people away the first time they see the machine. But believe me, you're going to want this perk. It is the only perk that rivals Juggernog as the greatest of all time. There is no simple way to describe this perk, but I will do my best. Widow's Wine gives you 4 Semtex-like grenades that have webs in them, okay? You can either throw them, or they pop off when a zombie hits you. When the webs shoot out, they hold zombies in place, giving you a chance to escape. Several seconds to escape. I don't think having the 4 webs is quite as good as having the 5 hits with Jug, but Widow's Wine is pretty damn close in terms of value. And every round, like grenades, you get a re-up. You get 2 more. Widow's Wine is a phenomenal perk. One of the best. The problem is, that's the only perk in Black Ops 3 that was new. I mean, you remember how many new perks we got with the previous games. It felt like we got a new one every single map. But we only got 1 in a 6-map span here, which was just sad, just painful. After its debut on Shadows, it was on Der Eisendrache, Zetsubo, Gorod, and Rev. This was in large part due to the brand new Gobblegum system in Black Ops 3. A lot of those potential perk ideas went towards Gobblegum. I suppose I could appreciate the Gobblegum abilities and cut my losses here, but that would be too easy. Perk-a-colas are exciting. They give the mode life, personality. There's just something so satisfying about walking into a room, off in the distance is that glowing, vibrant perk machine. You hear the jingle, you approach it, maybe you decide to shell over some points and have a taste. With more perks coming out, more slots were available. And with more slots available, came more ways to get perks. A 4 perk limit was the standard for a very long time, but gradually it increased from 4 to upwards of like 9, I suppose. Yeah, you know what? We're not even going to talk about Gobblegum. They sort of shattered the whole perk system in Black Ops 3. Oh, hey, look, Tim forgot to talk about perma perks in Black Ops 2. Nope, I didn't. It's just too confusing and misunderstood, and I don't feel like getting into it. Now it's time to talk about Black Ops 4. I've separated this game from the rest of the Black Ops games because this perk system is significantly different than the rest of them. Treyarch, for whatever reason, uncharacteristically decided to change the entire perk system from the ground up in an effort to eliminate Crutch Perks. What are Crutch Perks? They're the same 4 perks that you pick every single game, which tend to be the original 4, let's be honest. I mean, Quick Revive, Jug, Speed Cola, Double Tap 2, it's a very common loadout, which might not be the case for some of you watching, but I'm generalizing here, okay? The bottom line is, we usually pick the same perks, and Treyarch wasn't having it. Treyarch wanted more variety to their perk system. They didn't want people to rely on the same 4 perks and pick the same 4 perks in every fucking game. What Treyarch did was eliminate Crutch Perks without actually eliminating Crutch Perks. They were rather built into the player innately, because you get them every game, right? So why not just make it a part of you, literally. Quick Revive, not necessary. You have self-revives. Jug literally doesn't exist anymore. You spawn in with the default 200 HP. Double Tap? Pfft, more like pack a punch your gun 5 fucking consecutive times. And the way to get Speed Cola in Black Ops 4, it's interesting. You just buy your perks. Once you have all of your perks, you get the fast reload effect. What Treyarch didn't realize is that nobody wants to spend 15 grand to get their double tap effect. Quick Revive was perfectly fine the way it was, and by spawning in with 200 HP, you know, double what you normally would, you're killing natural game progression. You are spawning in at a further point than when you should be. Not to mention you spawn in with the Specialist, which is a wonder weapon. Now that the most iconic and beloved perks were abruptly ripped away from the game, what are we left with? Returning perks included Deadshot Dealer, Electric Burst, Mule Kick, PhD Slider. Oh, come on, that's just hurtful. Quick Revive and Stamin Up are also back, and although these abilities aren't identical to the way they were in the previous games, they're pretty damn close. There were some new ones as well, which was very exciting. We hadn't gotten a brand new perk since Shadows of Evil. Bandolier Bandit increases stock ammo in all of your weapons. Death Perception allows you to see zombies through objects. Dying Wish gives you a second chance at life, which is a lot like Quick Revive, but this one recharges, so as long as you give it time, you have many chances. Stone Cold Stronghold spawns a ring around the player, and the longer the player stands in the ring, the higher their damage output gets. Time Slip, it's for impatient people. Everything is generally faster. Victorious Tortoise, the ultimate shield perk. Winter's Wail, a shitty ripoff of Widow's Wine, and Secret Sauce, which gives you a randomly generated perk. Other than Secret Sauce, which is like a Wonder Fizz machine embodied in a perk, all of these perks are okay. Just okay. In an effort to eliminate Crutch Perks, Treyarch inadvertently created a roster of perks that don't differ from each other. They are all the exact same in terms of value, which was the point. The point was to make a preference-oriented perk system, what the player actually wants, not what the player needs. And on paper, that is all fine and dandy, but without a clear hierarchy of the perks, without a definitively bad or a definitively good perk, everything is the same. It's like communism. And what's so ironic is that I still pick the same 4 perks in every game. I pick Dying Wish, I pick Quick Revive. Stamin Up in the 4th spot does differ between Widow's Wine. I keep saying Widow's Wine. Winter's Wail and Time Slip. So I and many other people generally still pick the same perks because that's what people do. They get comfortable with abilities they like and then they pick them again in the future. You only get 4 perks and you select them before you even hop into the game. So if for whatever reason in-game you decide to change your mind, you have a change of heart, you don't feel the exact same way you did an hour ago when you started up the map, you can't change your mind now. You're boxed into the 4 you already picked. I like the idea of being able to customize where my perks are on the map with those 4 constant perk machines, but the problem is, with those machines, it just sucked all of the personality and vibrance out of the game. There was just something so special about those individual perk machines with individual personalities, jingles. Perk-a-Cola machines were like the one bright and vibrant thing about a very dark and depressing zombies mode. And now we're subjected to this. Wow. There's also what's called a modifier in this perk system. Your 4th perk slot will always have the modifier. It's the same perk with an added ability or two, a nice little steroid injection. So that's pretty cool, but I would say in contrast to, gee, I don't know, the fully functioning and perfectly fine old perk system, this one was a dud. The perk system is one of the leading factors as to why Black Ops 4 was hated so greatly by so many people. Taking away all of those classic perks is like taking away my childhood. And there's not even a good replacement for it. It's just a bunch of mediocre perks. There were some pretty cool DLC perks, like Ethereal Razor, which was a melee-oriented perk. Zombshell, which does this. Blood Wolf Bite, you spawn in pooches, and she goes fucking crazy. And Blaze Phase, which actually is the opposite of cool. This is... this is a pretty fucking lame perk idea. You crouch, and then you uncrouch, and you go shooting across the room. Gosh. Treyarch had good intentions with this perk system. They were trying to fix an actual issue, but by doing so created many more. It was received very poorly, and thus a change was required. And that brings us to this year's game, Cold War. This game also had a new perk system, but this one not nearly as terrible. After people like me bitched long enough about the old perks being removed, they finally added them back. Quick Revive, back. Juggernog, back. Speed Cola, back. Stamin Up returns, Deadshot lives on, and a brand new perk, Elemental Pop, also popped off. That was fucking terrible, Tim. The concept of Elemental Pop is actually a very simple one, and yet a very effective one. It simply shoots out an AAT, even if you don't have one, an alternate ammo type. You know, a double pack-a-punch variant. It's simple ideas like that just work. And the machine looks really cool and nice and pink. This perk system utilizes a fixed cost model where all of the perks are the exact same cost, the exact same value. It just increases based on how many perks you have. The first perk you buy is 2,500 regardless of what the perk is. It increases by 500 points per perk. So you pay 2,500 for the first one, 3,000 for the second one, 3,500 for the third one, etc. So it takes the same indiscriminate approach BO4 does, but has perks that people give two shits about. And the other big change is there is a tier system with these perks. Each perk can be eligible to upgrade through 5 tiers. It's pretty straightforward. The higher tier your perk is, the more effective it will be, the more abilities it tackles. Why haven't I upgraded them all to tier 5? You're asking the wrong questions. The real question is, who invited this guy back? Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Real quick, you guys like perks, right? That's why you're watching this video. Check out these posters down in the description. You remember Rad Austin 27? He was a big part of the Zombies community for a long time. He and I had a little collab here. Use this code on screen right here. It's not a discount code, unfortunately. It doesn't help you out, but it helps me out. It just tracks the sales, okay? I don't make the rules here. Please check them out. They're awesome. I gotta go. Take care. Peace out.